Hey everyone, I am so excited today to introduce you to a woman who I met recently, and her name is Solera Cheng. Welcome, my lovely. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're
So excited
welcome.
to be here.
Yes. Now, Solera and I met a couple of weeks ago at a conference, and we got talking all things channeling. And I wanted to bring her on today and have a conversation with her because Solera is a spiritual channel. She helps people create more wealth. And her experience of becoming a channel is very different to mine. And I thought it'd be super fun to talk about some of the differences of how you can become a channel and grow your channeling ability. So, Solera is from Florida originally. Is that right?
Mhm.
She's from Florida originally, and whilst she's also living in the UK right now, doing some clearing of the stone circles over there, she's also been visiting Australia, and that's where I got to meet her up in Noosa a couple of weeks ago. So, Solera, I'd love for you to tell us, because yours is an overnight story, and I find those so fascinating in terms of how your channel opened. So, would you tell us a little bit about like what went down? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I have heard of channeling, from actually my financial planner in my 20s, because his ex-wife was an Records reader. And I used to be like, really irresponsible with money. And he would be like, you should go see my ex-wife for some help, like, so I had this lady that would go to see me like maybe once a month or something, just to like, ask her for some help. Um, this was years ago, like probably 10, 12 years. She's passed away since then. And she was like, oh, you can channel too. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like I was not interested in channeling. Like I had no desire to learn. And I was really afraid of ghosts. I thought channeling meant that you have to see ghosts. And I was like so traumatized by the movie Sixth Sense, right?
Yes, yeah, that's for sure.
um, yeah, so in 2018, I went to Iceland for 3 months. And during that period of time, I mean, I just really had a lot of time. I didn't have like a job there, just really there kind of on sabbatical. And I had this nudge to contact this like long lost friend. And I mean, somebody that I hadn't talked to in 10 years. And we went to college together at university. And when I reached out to her, she was like, the first thing she told me, she was like, oh, I stopped practicing law. She was an attorney. I'm studying something called the Akashic Records. Like you should learn how to do it. It's really easy. And I think because she has said it and we went to the same school, and I thought, okay, well, if she says it's not that hard, then it's probably not that hard. I kind of just trusted that because she was my friend. And I just Googled, how do you channel the Akashic Records? I typed it in, I read a blog post, I followed the instructions, like, and then the first time I did it, I it was like a full clear message and I wrote it down, like in my
Yeah.
notebook.
Mm.
Um, because in the blog post, I think it says like, oh, you can just learn it through like writing, you can channel through writing. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound that hard. So I just like wrote down the message. And I was like, oh, this does not sound like me. Like, because I was a very avid journaler at that point. Like, I would journal every single day in my notebook. But it's like, I'm complaining about the day. I'm not saying
Right.
any lies.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, um, because I saw the message right in black and white in my notebook, and that sounded so different from my own normal journaling. I was like, okay, that's probably not me. Like it just sounds like too good to be true, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
um, so I practiced it. Again, I had a lot of time. So the next day I practiced it. And then every single day I had a message that came through really clearly. It was like there was no blockage. It wasn't like I only heard some of it, but not heard some of it. It was like the energy was I started channeling, I started writing, and when they were done talking, like the pen stopped. It's like a period,
Yeah, wow.
you know.
Mm.
You know how when you journal yourself in a notebook, it's like you're thinking, so you write two sentences, then you're kind of thinking, and then you write two sentences, kind of like, it's more choppy.
Yeah.
Um, but the channel is like, it's like one smooth energy from when I picked up the pen, I started writing down what they said to me to when I finished. It's just like one coherent thought. It felt like that to me. So I knew that was like not my own message, because people ask me, well, how do you know it's not your own? I was like, well, because I know how I write. I'm just bitching about the day, like there's
Yeah.
nothing going on. And so then at that time, I met a boyfriend, and he was like, oh, let's go to Thailand together, go to Bangkok together. And, I met him in Iceland. And I was like, well, I just met him. I wasn't really sure. So I asked the guides, um, should I move to Thailand with him? Like I just met him, you know. And they're like, yes, Thailand is a very vibrant place. You'll feel very excited by the energy. But there are going to be challenges there, but like it's going to be a place that, that you'll really enjoy. So I just was like, okay, whatever. Like I didn't have any baggage in my life at that time. I was free completely. So I went with him. We broke up in 4 days. Like we got there, we broke up in 4 days. And so he left me on like the fourth day.
Like, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like he brought me there. He was like a transporter. He
Yeah, right.
got me there. I landed in Bangkok, and I started a new life. And I lived in Thailand for 6 years.
Mm.
And it really changed my life. Like Thailand really, really changed my life in
Um,
in every shape and form. Because when I moved there, I was still going by my Chinese name. Like I had a Chinese name. And when I got there, the first thing that the spirit guide said to me was, you're going to call yourself Solera, Solera, and it means a being of light. And you're going to tell everybody your name is Solera.
mm,
And it's a little bit easier to have a new name when you're in a country where they don't even speak English and nobody knew me. So it didn't matter. You know what I mean?
uh,
It would be a lot harder to like start a new name when you're in your own country surrounded by your friends. They're just gonna think you're weird, right? So it was just kind of one of those things where, okay, I'm in Thailand. Like I had like one friend who knew me by like my old name. So it didn't matter. So I started studying Thai. I went to Thai school for 6 months. So at school, I told everybody my name was Solera. And so, and that channeling just kind of continued. And then, and as I was going to school, the guy said to me, "Okay, now we want you to write books." And they woke me up at like at 7 a.m. It was like one day they just woke me up. They're like, "Okay, we want you to start writing."
yeah. And so they
And
obviously, you're talking about your guides, aren't you? That's what you
yeah,
when you say they, yeah.
that's
And
the guys.
just for everyone else's interest as well. So so I know you were talking about writing, you could write,
Yeah,
but are you hearing the thoughts? Like are you like, is it like a auditory thing that you can hear, or are you sensing and or is it coming to you in here? I'm just curious because I talk about,
yeah. I would say I'm clairaudient. Like
yeah.
how people, some people are clairvoyant, right? That like they see aura. I don't really see auras and stuff like that, but I hear them word for word. It's
Yes,
like
which I,
like
yeah.
like you
Yeah, which is
yeah,
amazing
word.
because that's not one of the clairs I have. So for anyone listening, clairs are the five like spiritual senses, which is clairaudience,
There's
cognizance,
six. Yeah.
the other six. Okay, thank you. So the way you think, you feel, you hear, you sense, you know. And there's what's the sixth
Yeah.
one?
Because some people can taste and smell. You know
Oh,
what I
that's
mean?
it.
Like,
Yes, that's the
yeah,
other
some
one.
people
Yes.
can taste.
Thank
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I
Those are
think
very.
that's really good because when you're, in my experience, when your channel's open, everyone has different strengths with those. So yours, and one of the things when we talked at conference, like, because I don't hear, like it's the one thing, like, oh, I wish I could hear, right? I'm sure it will develop over time, and my ears have been changing. But I'm more of a sensor and a knower, so I grab thoughts here and also feel it in my body as well. So just wanted to let people know that that was different, and so please continue. Thank you. Just to clarify everyone for that.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because I always just kind of heard them because I had myself, like I told you, I was traumatized by the movie Sixth Sense. So I was really afraid of seeing stuff. I literally said to them, I don't want to see. It was
Okay.
like I was like, I am not interested. Like don't make me see it. I mean, now I see a lot more. Like when I channel, I see visions, but because I can download like future vision for people, like
Yes.
their futures, what they're
Uh,
here to be. So when I'm downloading their future self, like I see it really clearly, what they're supposed to do, how they're going to contribute to the world, all
yeah.
that stuff. I see that really clearly, but it's almost like I'm really only interested in seeing the good stuff, you know what I mean? So
And I think this is really interesting, right? So you can tell your guides, like you can put boundaries around what you're willing to receive or not receive. And, that might become a negotiation with them later when they're like, okay, you might need to open a little bit more to things. But I think that's also something that people don't necessarily realize is that it's not just like you're like, like this, and it's like just, anything and everything is you're then open. You can do it gradually. You can go, like I'll say to some of my people, I'm like, you can say to them, like, don't give it to me at 3 a.m. in the morning because that's going to really ruin my day if we do this on a constant basis, right? So you do have a bit of say in sometimes how it actually you receive, I find. Because I mean,
yeah.
who's waking up at 3 a.m. every day? Like, every now and then I don't mind. But I'm like, oh, come on, guys, I need my sleep. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can definitely set boundaries with them because I have a rule, like I know a lot of channels and psychics is like they just hear things kind of as they go. I'm very different because from the very beginning, it's kind of like I'll talk to you when I want to talk to you, but like otherwise don't interrupt my life, you know?
Okay.
So I really only talk to them when I want to talk to them. So it's
Mm,
not like they're badgering me and like commenting, on stuff when I'm having dinner with friends outside. You know what I mean? I just think that that would be so disruptive to like
yeah.
having a normal life.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, no,
Yes.
like don't talk to me when I'm on the toilet. So like,
You're like,
you
that's
know,
my
like,
special time. They just don't don't interrupt.
uh, yeah, so I definitely have like that kind of boundary with the guides.
Yeah.
But in term and even some of the galactic, families, they've come to me before and they're like, oh, we want to channel through you. I'm like, I'm really busy. Like, can't you see that I have a lot of things to do? Like, I can't just be channeling everybody's message. Like, I'm like, y'all gotta wait in line. Like there's like a long line. So
I love it. I love it.
yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned that's probably great to just touch on is that fear. So I remember when before I was afraid of any form of higher energy, so to speak. Like I would just be like, oh, I was afraid of being blown open and like, receiving things I didn't want. So I had to have a really gradual opening so that I could learn to trust and know I was okay. And I remember the very first time I felt, myself channeling my divine energy, and it was like it like popped through the top of my head and then went out, through me and out through my feet. And so I really had to get accustomed to energy in a very slow fashion. And how have you found it since since that first day when you channel like, oh yeah, I can hear you guys.
I think the messages are always clear, but there are definitely like levels of expansion,
Yeah.
in terms of how much energy you can receive. Like at the beginning, I knew I was talking to the guides, and I didn't feel any fear towards their energy. It just felt neutral, loving, unconditional. And but I didn't know who was who. And I almost like was afraid to know. But one of my friends was like, oh, you should ask them to separate themselves. So I did ask them. And then Kuan Yin came to me as the first one. And her energy is very gentle. And I think she came to me because like I remember seeing her on TV like as a child in Hong Kong. So I'm like, okay, I know Kuan Yin like as a
Right.
TV figure, you know.
Yes.
Um, and then Mary Magdalene came to me. Um, and then Jesus came to me. So it's kind of gradually I
Mm,
figure out who in my circle, you can say.
mm.
Like now I tell people Jesus is like my BFF. So I'm not Christian. I wasn't born Christian, but like I feel very comfortable with his energy and he's super funny. I think people knew how humorous he is. Like nobody would be so serious about Christianity, you know. Um, so like and I can distinguish their energy when I channel. It's like
Yeah.
they're different, like they come out differently. The words are different, like the
Yes.
grammar is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then and again it was then it was like the next level was like the angels. I started being able to channel the archangels, like Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, like there's so many of them. There are like so many of them.
Yes.
Um, like if I want to figure out, like if I want to talk to animals, like or understand animals, I'll ask like Angel Thuriel to like what's happening with the cat, like um, so
And
they, yeah.
well, and this is one of the reasons that it's brought me a great deal of joy is because being able to channel, so I call it like being able to channel my divine inspiration, my divine connection, right? So I think about it as my guides, what I'm channeling, but it's so supportive of my life. And, I can access guidance for myself, all the time. So I'm a big journaler. And when I journal, I'll actually speak to God or my guides directly. And the way that they respond, as you said, I was like, oh yeah, that's not me. Way too like, old style language than I would use. But I actually find it so reassuring. And so it's actually, for me, really, I used to feel a lot of loneliness in my life. And since being able to channel and really developing that connection with my divine self and, my guides, I feel that like so minimally now in my life. So, and that's the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about is, it's wonderful that we can channel and we use it for our work and, helping to raise consciousness, but it's also such a gift for ourselves, I find. And I'd be interested to hear, your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I think like I do agree that when I have the guides, all the time, I never really feel lonely because I'm always talking to somebody,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like
That's
there's
right.
always somebody that I'm talking
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
If it's not Jesus or Mary Magdalene or Isis, like there's somebody, all the archangels. So it's
Exactly.
quite busy. Like I have a big entourage, like my own spiritual entourage. So they keep me entertained, very busy, and I have a lot of work to do, So
Yeah.
and I think, having your guides and being able to connect to your guides is such a reassuring feeling because they always like they see a much bigger perspective, right, than what we can see as humans. So when I'm really stuck on one little problem, like they can show me a much bigger perspective,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So yeah, and I think that bigger perspective um yeah, it really changes my life because now I feel like I'm connected all the time, right?
mm.
I'm connected to kind of that eternal wisdom all the time. And even if my human mind is a little lost, they'll usually kind of pull me out of that rut and be like, okay, let's just get back on track.
Yeah.
And I do encourage people, to spend time connecting to their spirit guides because it would just change your life, like on a
Mhm.
very fundamental level.
I absolutely agree with that. And that's a wonderful place to wrap up with my final question, which is, so if you're speaking to someone who, like, what's your best advice, for someone who is wanting to develop that kind of skill within them?
Um, First of all, I think you have to have that intention.
Yeah.
Like it'll be helpful to say, okay, I'm open to connecting. I think that openness is probably number one. Like I
Mm,
really feel like the only reason why I end up channeling so easily was because I was just in a place in my life when I was in Iceland where I was really open. I
mm,
didn't have anything really going on. I was kind of like open to everything. And so it's like it opened that crack for the flow to come in, if
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if anyone who really wants to like seriously learn about channeling or Akashic records, I do offer a channeling course if they're interested. It's like a 6-week program. You can learn it yourself. I've even had students who became professional channels after 6 weeks. So it's not difficult, there are
No.
lots of programs out there. They're like, they've got like a huge manual, and you have to like, do this and do that. But it's like going to the library, like you just walk in and you
Yeah.
start to discover what's there.
Yeah.
So once you kind of have that sense of almost like safety, like, hey, it's okay, like it's not dangerous, you're just going to the library,
Yes.
then it's a lot easier for people to channel like that. Your natural channel will open up
Mm.
when your fears are out of the way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And it is, as you say, it's that intention, actually one of the things I teach is around getting connected to what the clairaudient, the clairs that we talked about, like what are your strongest spiritual senses and using those to find your way in to opening your channel.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of the people that I tend to work with, they're coming from that, gradual place as well. And then practice, right? You got to just keep practicing the connection, using it when you use it, they'll be like, great, let me give you some more. Like, let's do this, like, let's do more together. That's certainly what I've found as well. So thank you so much for your top tips there. I appreciate that. I'm going to be sharing Solera's details in the post above or below. So I'm so delighted that you could join me today and I could introduce you to my community. So thank you so much, Solera, for joining us.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's so lovely to just be able to connect and share like a topic that, I can't just talk to like anybody off of the street about.
Yes.
So
Yes, I was like, this is going to be a fun conversation. So thank you. I'm sure everyone's going to find this super interesting. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks, my lovely.
likewise, thank you.
Bye.